My daughter was sick with the cold all weekend, and she is home today.
Okay.
And as a special uh, gift for Dad, I now have her cold.
I was
So
gonna say you do sound a little stuffed up. Oh
yeah,
man.
we're both. She's been miserable, and I anticipate the next couple days I will be miserable. Uh,
Oh.
but it is what it is, right? So so I think we are. Yep, we're recording. So what I was hoping we could do, I'll have to be a little more circumspect about discussing some things, obviously with everything. But I was
Okay.
hoping we could just start in with however you normally start for your sessions and all that good stuff, if that
Okay.
works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple generally are options for clients that help is either you've done some thinking beforehand and there's a session prep form that some of my clients use. Otherwise, they just use it sort of as a framework to kind of pre-think and send it to me. Otherwise, we can talk it through together. So what I normally do is check in about what's been going well since the last time what things celebrate and call them wins or celebrations. So we can focus on, what's going good because we spend, a majority of our time on things that are not
Right.
working
Well,
well. And so it's important to anchor those and figure out how did they happen also, because we can then mine them for it's of wonderfulness that we want to use toward other things, like what
right.
worked about it, why was able that, and all of those different pieces. So that's generally how I start.
Well, I mean, as we spoke about before, there are a lot of things that are not for celebration, but
Mhm.
honestly, I think probably the biggest celebration thing is that we're starting these sessions. That after a long um, period adrift, I'm taking steps now to change that. So that I think is the big one. Now I'm really searching
Yeah,
for something else to celebrate. I mean,
that's
obviously
good.
my daughter is something to celebrate, but as far as things that I'm doing, um,
It could be even just things that have gone well, or even so if there's something that you generally find and you did it anyway, something that's been on a to-do list for a long time and you took care of it, even just having compassion for
well,
yourself while you're sick is a win. Any of those things.
well, I mean, I did yesterday. I did get some laundry done and folded,
Nice.
which is, uh, I mean, it's a something to celebrate from. I mean, in general, just getting something done, but also with my MS, I've just been feeling so exhausted. But I know from past experience, I know that doing nothing makes me more tired or less likely to do anything.
Okay.
So just the fact uh, that I got some stuff done, and and one other sort of MS/ADD issue. Always, I've been a night owl. I've just always come alive at night when the rest of the world is asleep. So that's just always been I think an ADD thing, but who knows? But that's
Mhm.
always been my tendency. I
Okay.
like working early in the morning. I like being up early. I like working early in the morning. Afternoons are just have always been bad for me. And then, late at night is also a good time for me. Now that's just the way it's always been.
Mhm.
There is a well-known, or I assume it's well-known, all of the MS professionals have said, yeah, that's typical, is that um, afternoon, the drop in fatigue in the afternoon is really a problem. And I find I take my ADD medication also helps with fatigue. If I didn't have ADD, then I would be taking anti-fatigue medication just for MS. One of
Okay.
the biggest issues with MS on a day-to-day basis is fatigue, it's exhaustion. And what I find is that I tend to have as much, if not more, energy in the middle of the night without medication than I do in the afternoon on my medication. Which, if it were just me, then I would just be a night owl. I would just sleep during the day and work at night and that sort of thing. But with a
Mhm.
4-year-old, that really doesn't work. So
Yeah.
that's a big challenge. But I just happened to be, I put her to bed, and then I was awake and I wasn't feeling tired. So instead of doing what I typically do, which is just play on the computer or watch TV, whatever, uh, I said, I'm going to get something done. So I got laundry started. I folded one load, and then I was tired. But then yesterday with my daughter, she was watching her shows, and I folded some laundry so I could be in the room with her. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's a little thing, but
To
it's a
qualify
thing.
it, it's a thing. It's a thing. Yep.
Yeah,
Great. And especially, like you said, given all the components of that, that with fatigue and with the other, having a sick 4-year-old
yeah,
and not feeling great yourself, all of those things, can make it even more challenging to just even get started, to activate, to have chosen to do the laundry and then
right,
get through, a full load folding and then come back to it. All of those things are really important things to, can acknowledge and because when it's the all or nothing of our thinking that gets us in trouble often of, well, I have to do all the dirty laundry from beginning to end right
right,
now. Sometimes we might need to do that because if we have a window of
right,
time where like, okay, I have a chance to do it and I have no clothes. But usually can break it down and give permission to do small
right.
portions of it or segments of something. Celebrate the progress that you did make, and then also have a plan to come back to it. And when we tend to overdo stuff, we tend to maybe put off coming back to it longer, because we can, like doing 4 or 5 loads of laundry is a project. It's not a chore anymore.
Well, and also, and this is going to be, I assume it's new for you working the MS component.
Yep.
The
Yes, I have other clients with lots of other coexisting things, but the first for specific another client with well, it's similar, I guess. Chronic fatigue is not exactly the same, but similar
it's not
theme.
exactly the same thing, but I think there is a lot of crossover there. But
Yeah.
you mentioned, the reason I bring it up is that you mentioned activating, which has always
Mhm.
been a challenge for me, for all of us.
Yeah.
Uh, But what I used to find in the past is that once I activate, especially if it was the middle of the night, right, I'd get into that flow state and
Yeah.
I'd work all the way through and I'd get stuff done. And I just can't do that now. So
Right.
for me, I need, I think, more like micro habits and, activate for 15 minutes at a time, for half an hour at a time, just get little chunks done.
Yeah.
Because, if I were to say I'm going to clean the house, there'd be no way. I might vacuum the living room, but then I'd need to stop and rest. So, and I hope that it won't always be that way. I have one of the big things that I want to work on and that I could use your help with is I have not been taking care of my MS the way that I should. And then that makes it harder to deal with the ADD the way that I should. And that makes it harder to take care of my daughter the way that I should. It all snowballs. But
All right.
yeah, the activating on many, many different fronts in small ways throughout the day, that would be fantastic if we could when we get me to that point.
All right. So, what do you mean by take MS? What would it if you were taking care of your MS?
Uh, so I'm not being as active as I need to be. I know that the MS has a neurological component. It's incurable. It's progressive. There isn't, as far as I know, there isn't anything that I can do about that. But there's sort of secondary symptoms of fatigue, of muscle weakness, of poor balance, and I believe that those can be mitigated to some extent through physical therapy, through activity, through diet, through sleep, through all those sorts of things. Basically, I mean, I'm running on fumes all the time. So when those fumes are depleted, there's nothing left. And there have been times that sure, I get sad. Sometimes I cry sometimes about being sad, but also just from sheer exhaustion, just weeping from sheer exhaustion. There have
Yeah.
been times that I've literally had to crawl from one room to the next because I didn't have the energy or the strength to stand up and stumble, to walk / stumble to the next room. That's extreme, that doesn't happen very often, but it has happened.
Okay.
And there have been a couple of times this past year when, I invited people over, so I had people coming over, so I had to get the place clean. And it was 2 exhausting days of clean and then rest and then clean and then rest. And I mean, I was wiped, but for a few days afterwards, I felt like I had more energy because I had forced myself to be active. So, I bought an exercise bike because I spend way too much time, watching TV, YouTube, whatever. And I could be doing something, not that I'm going to be, going beast mode or anything, but I could be doing something.
Okay.
And it took me a week or so. The box sat for a month before I even opened it up. And then it took me a week to get it all put together, but it's put together.
Great.
And my daughter likes to get on it, and I have to, supervise that. And she can't obviously reach anything. She sits kind of where, the seat's up here and she sits down here so she can reach the pedals, but she likes it. So I bought another one, a kind of a smaller one, not a kid one, but a smaller one that's still in the box. But I thought, well, if I get that put together and if I make, tape a towel or something, make a little saddle for her, then we could get on it together while she's watching her shows. That would be something fun for her.
Nice.
And, I don't have a support system. So it's, for the most part, it's me. And I know that that is a problem from an ADD standpoint. I also know it's a problem from an MS standpoint.
Sure.
But if I can be more active, if I can eat better, if I can try to get more sleep one way or the other, I got to figure something out with that.
Mm.
But there are things that I can there are things that I can do that will lessen, that will mitigate the impact the MS has on my life. And I think that also will mitigate the impact that it has on my ADD, which will help me in other ways. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, I've dealt with the ADD, or not dealt with it, my whole life. Now I've got the MS. Now I'm a single parent and I have no support system. So there's a lot of challenges, and it has been a horrible few years.
Yeah.
It really has been, and it's getting worse. And I feel like either I turn things around or I admit that I'm just circling the drain, and I can't do that when I've got a 4-year-old. So got to turn things around, which
Okay.
is why we're here.
Yeah.